guys, it's Ty with Ty the Dog Guy on the Daily, and I want to talk today about child aggression in dogs. This is a tough one. I'll be honest, dog aggression is one of my favorite things to work on. We've developed some systems and some processes that are really, well, world class, although I'm the one that's trying to sell them, so take that for what it's worth. But anyways, we've done a ton of amazing things with dog aggression, and I enjoy it because there's a lot of predictability in how we can solve dog aggression for our clients. Or aggression in dogs, I should say, because that might be aggression towards other dogs or people or cats. But dog aggression towards children, child aggression, however we want to put that, is probably my least favorite to work on because it's so much more difficult and there's so many, the stakes are so much higher. And so I wanted to talk about that today and give some examples and talk about things that I've seen and talk about, when it's not even a good idea to risk it. So the first thing that we need to look at is from the get-go, having our dogs and our children, teaching our kids to treat the dogs with respect. And this is a big deal. I remember years ago having a client that we worked with a service dog, and months later, oh, hey, the dog's growling at my kids. All right, well, let's talk about what's going on here. Let's look at it from the dog's perspective, from the kid's perspective. All right, what are the kids doing? Well, they kind of smack him, and, they're really rough with him, and they pull his tail. And my response was like, whoa, yeah, no wonder that the dog's being aggressive, growling at the kids and showing some child aggression. Well, he's a service dog. He should be able to take anything, right? No. Whether it's a service dog or any dog, a dog is a living creature. You can't beat it up. You can't rough it up. You can't threaten it constantly, and have that dog be like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'm cool with everything. I'm not gonna ever defend myself. And so first things first, this is the biggest thing. And this is the part that's usually second in the parent's mind. And no, I don't want to call people out on this, but like I say, it is often second. Like the call we get is, we need to train our dog because he's getting aggressive with our kids. All right, what have you done with the kids so far to help? Well, I try, but they don't really listen. And it's like, well, do you think you're going to be able to get a dog to listen to you then? And the reality is sometimes dogs are easier to get to listen than kids. As a father of 4, I completely get that. But too often, people are putting the onus on the dog, saying we need to get the dog to just take it. And that's not fair. It's not okay. I mean, we need a plan for that, and we need to help the dog, be able to handle more pressure and more stress. But it's not fair to say, well, kids are going to do this, so it is what it is. So that's first things first, is teaching the kids, and if we've got a situation like this, we need to teach the kids to leave the dog alone. And if the question comes up of, well, what about, my kids want to play with the dog? Well, the dog doesn't want to play with the kids right now. Maybe we'll get the dog back to that. Maybe we won't. But the dog doesn't want to play with the kids. We can't force play. We can't say, all right, I know this makes you uncomfortable. You don't like this, but like it. We can do counter conditioning and we can hopefully teach the dog to like the kids or like the play. But personality and character are their own things. And training, we're not going to take a dog and say, okay, we're going to implant you a whole new personality. So first things first, we need to respect the dog enough to teach the kids to respect the dog. But also, we need to respect the dog enough to understand that this is a living, breathing creature that has its own needs and wants and fears and confidence and all sorts of things. We need to respect this dog as an individual. And again, too often, the blame, the responsibility is put on the dog. Well, the dog just needs to deal with it. No, let's erase that from our mind. Number 2, like I said, we need to understand that every dog has its own character. So let me give you an example. My old dog, his name is Rocco. Some people know him. He passed away earlier this year in January, and he was 11 years old. Now, when he passed away, my oldest daughter was 9 going on 10. And so he was about a year and a half before she came along. And, when she came along, he was fine. And it got to the point to where she was crawling, at 9 months, 10 months, whatever that is. And then after that, walking and coming at him, not coming at him in in a bad way, but just like, oh, look, a dog, I'm going to come towards him. And it was at that point that he kind of realized, I don't know that I like kids too much. And so again, we recognized that that was his character, and we did a lot to counter condition him. But I think he lived the next 10 years, and we have 4 kids now. He lived the next 10 years with 4 young girls, and I don't think that he ever liked them, but he never bit them, and there was never any inappropriateness from him because we taught him how to deal with it. And that's something that people need to understand is, again, we may or may not, change the dog's likes, but we can insist on the behavior we want. And so what do? We taught him how to deal with it. So when she would approach, when it first started and he started growling, and we're like, oh shoot, we've got a dog who's growling, we taught him an alternative. We said, okay, come here and lie down over there. Gave a little correction, said, no, you can't growl, come and lie down over here. If he growled again, nope, you can't do that. With a little bit of a correction, usually with the leash at that point. All right, come over here and lie down. And over and over and over, until the point got to where he would realize, okay, here comes a little girl. At first it was our oldest, and then our second oldest, of course. Here comes somebody that makes me a little uncomfortable. Instead of growling and getting angry, I'm just going to move. And so that's what he spent the next 10 years doing. And at the same time, we just taught our girls, leave Rocco alone. And they could interact, they could feed him, they could throw the ball for him, they could hang out with him. But he wasn't ever going to be their best friend. And that's fine. He doesn't have to be everyone's best friend. In fact, he was, we imported him from Europe as a puppy. European Rots are very powerful. He was, European Rots are known for not always being the most loving towards kids and stuff like that. So anyways, we understood that as part of his personality. And we just trained him, okay, here's an alternative. You cannot do this. Getting aggressive with a little kid, not okay. You can't do this. But here's what you can do. Just walk away from the situation and you'll be fine. And sure enough, 10 years went by with a dog, a powerful dog that was trained for protection, who wasn't a fan of kids, did just fine with him for 10 years because of that. Now, another thing you can do, number 3, is you can do counter conditioning. And counter conditioning is, dog's a little uncomfortable with the kid. Well, now the kid just became a food dispenser. Under supervision, of course, where when the dog is calm, the child, with the parents, maybe even sitting on the parent's lap, something like that, hands the dog a treat, good job, hands the dog a treat, good job. And we just help the dog realize that that's a good thing, that kids can provide food, and we like that, because we like to eat, and we need to eat to live. And so that's another thing that you can do. There's a million other things that we do for child aggression, but those are some of the bigger ones. But I wanted to talk about, because a lot of folks say, well, when's it a good idea to give up? And I'm not a fan of giving up. And this has been actually one of my biggest flaws as a dog trainer, is over the years, sometimes I try to make a square peg fit into a round hole. It's where it's not a good match. The dog isn't the right dog for the situation. I say, no, with the right training, we can make it work. And the reality is, with the right training, I can make almost anything work. But what I can't do is get every client to be a perfect dog trainer at all times. And that's, dog training really needs to be seen as a teamwork type thing. To where, yes, we can get the dog trained, but we also have to get the owners on board, and the owners doing everything really well and doing everything right. And sometimes we have to look at a scenario and say, look, there's too many kids, or the parents are not in a position where they can supervise 100%, or something like that, or the dog has just been way too aggressive, actually bit or attacked a kid. We've got to, and those become uncomfortable conversations where we have to think about, all right, does this dog need to be actually put down or rehomed somewhere where there's not going to be any kids? But those conversations are often, like I say, with the safety in mind, with the lifestyle in mind, with the expectations of the owners in mind, and with the owner's commitment level in mind. A lot of owners say, no, I'm committed verbally, but their actions say otherwise. But if you've got an owner who's committed and is going to get very good, we can overcome some of these, just discomfort issues where the dog's not comfortable with other dogs, or I'm sorry, with kids. But like I say, even the most professional, the best dog trainers in the world, I've dealt with this for years and years and years. If I had a dog in my home that was trying to attack a kid, I'm not going to try to work through that. There's no point. Or not that there's no point, but it's just too risky. If I've got a dog that's showing intent, I'm not going to allow my kids to be, the test dummies, as it were. Like I say with Rocco, he just showed discomfort which led to a little bit of growling, and we worked him through it, and he was fine. And we had to stay on top of him for 10 years, but we have to stay on top of everything, because he was a big, powerful Rottweiler, with some really intense training and things like that. There wasn't any way to not stay on top of him. And so like I say, we were a match for that, and it worked out just fine. And he was my best friend, and I'll never regret having him around my kids, because he protected the home and he kept the kids safe, even though he was more about keeping me safe and the house safe. Hey, but in the process, the kids were kept safe. And so, but it needs to be a case-by-case scenario with, like I say, a lot of reality set in, with people who know what they're talking about, people that have done this type of stuff before. If I'm saying that, if you're the one dealing with child aggression, seek out those who have dealt with this type of thing before. Best of luck to you.